Hey everyone, here's your weekly disclaimer. This week we used the Zoom audio as opposed to what we usually do, which is our mics, and I guess the Zoom uses the mic. Anyway, we used the audio straight from Zoom. It changes nothing. It's still a great episode, and hope you enjoy it. Hello. Welcome to the 97th episode of the Karstcast movie-cast. I'm here as always with my co-host Jeff. And today we have a very special guest, the director of Some Kind of Heaven, Lance Oppenheim.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of everything you guys do. It's nice to thank you for bringing me on. I'm excited to talk about this movie with you.
Of course.
Happy birthday, first of all.
Happy birthday as well.
I won't. I'm gonna leave the show unless you guys.
Old.
If you guys don't sing me happy birthday, I'm leaving. I'm exiting out of this Zoom. I'm just please don't do that.
No, that's the outro.
Add it in
Please
post,
don't.
And then you're free to leave at any time during the happy birthday singing.
It's just funny because the thing that's a bummer about this pandemic. Only a bummer because no, I'm just kidding. Obviously, it's a fucking it's a horrible, terrible thing. But no, I always I'm the asshole who uses my birthday as a way to go out for dinner. I'll be like, you got a birthday discount, or I go to any place that I'm gonna buy something from, and I'll this is just like a tradition I've always done. Best Buy, I'll ask if they do like a 10% off birthday discount.
Yeah.
Do they?
I just usually people say no, but I like the ask. It's like the one day you can ask things from people.
Yeah.
It's a great leading question.
So yeah, no, I need to I should go try and get a meeting with Marvel Studios and say, can I make a movie? It's my birthday. 10% on. I don't know. I don't want to make a Marvel movie. Would you guys want to make a Marvel movie if you had the chance to? Maybe.
I feel like I don't know. It's not just making the movie. You have to know all the lore and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's unless we're talking Ant-Man, where it's I feel like the stakes are kind of low. I'm
a small man.
It's kind of funny. I was just thinking about this. Ant-Man is one of the more interesting, I think given its baggage, because you remember the whole Edgar Wright thing, and then he was fired.
Yeah, right.
And then Paul Rudd and Adam McKay, didn't they wrote the scripts, right? And then
I think so.
For the first one. And then I thought I haven't seen the second Ant-Man actually, but I remember, I really liked I thought the first one was awesome. I liked how they had Neil Hamburger. Have you ever seen this video? Sorry, I'm just going off topic already.
Please.
But there's a video of Greg Turkington, who plays Neil Hamburger in on Cinema, or I guess he's not, he's in a bunch of the Tim and Eric extended universe, but he plays the guy who fires Paul Rudd at the Baskin Robbins at the beginning of the movie. And it's like a 5-second cameo, but there's a video of him on the red carpet getting interviewed by, some random entertainment journalist. Mm-hmm. And I think, the video starts we're on the red carpet with Michael Douglas, and you see a shot of Michael Douglas going inside, and Paul Rudd, and he's just waving, and we have one of the stars of Ant-Man, we have Greg Turkington here, and Greg Turkington is I think he may have memorized the Wikipedia entry for what the synopsis of the movie is, and anyway, long story short, it's just one of the funniest things in the planet, because he just this poor journalist is trying to leave to get to one of the more elite talent in the movie, and Greg Turkington just hogs the microphone, and he's just I can't, I got to tell you what my part in the movie is. But anyway, Marvel. Yeah, that must be stressful having to feel like you own the cultural heritage of
right.
Yeah, I think Star Wars is probably the only IP where there's more scrutiny for the new directors who try to take them on.
Yeah.
I don't think I need that.
Oh my God! I mean, look at
Ant-Man, you made him the wrong size.
Yeah. I still can't get over the Ryan Johnson thing because I love Ryan Johnson's movies. Honestly, I feel like I'm a bigger Ryan Johnson fan than I am a Star Wars fan at this point in my life. Which is, I'm sorry if I'm offending you guys, but
Not at all.
I like that
No.
movie a lot. And I just remember being like, wow, people are really, this says so much about that culture that they can't accept a movie like this. And then also the fucking sequel to that movie is like, oh God, I can't believe that happened. I feel bad for everyone involved,
Yeah. It's a mess.
Yes. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't mean to hijack.
The thing about this podcast is like the twist is that we try to talk about movies and then kind of derail pretty fast. So like this is already very on brand.
And also, if anything, we're only derailing it from talking about your film. So if anything, I think you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I honestly would rather just, no. I mean, I'm happy to talk about this movie, but I'm also, I like talking movies with fellow cinephiles. I feel like my friends in my own personal life, my girlfriend always tells me that I talk about movies too much. She's not a filmmaker and she's, very smart, intelligent, awesome person. If you're listening, Glenn, I love you. But no, anyway, everyone in my life is always like, will you just shut the fuck up about the movie stuff for a second? Like, which is sad because I really, I have a lot of thoughts about things and I don't like expressing myself on the internet because I get too nervous about that. So
start a podcast.
Anyway. Carson just enrages people on Letterboxd. That's kind of
yeah, you have a whole legion of people who could make angry or you got ride or dies. They'll
They actually found out how to make Karsten angry a while ago. Remember there was the phase where every comment was just Karsten Rundquist moment on Letterboxd?
Yeah, and I didn't know what that meant, and I still don't. And I asked them to stop, and then that in itself became a joke. And I'm just like, it's a tricky situation. I'm like, in many ways, I'm also Ryan Johnson right now. I can feel pressure.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this happens sometimes. There's this other guy. So I have a friend who made Feels Good Man, Arthur Jones.
Yeah.
A great filmmaker.
Amazing documentary.
Great fucking movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. He connected me with this guy, Adam, who runs Your Movie Sucks. Which I actually followed for a while. I really like him. But I was looking at the comments for his like the video where he reviewed our film. And I feel like he probably, I asked him if he has a similar feeling because everyone's just been, shitting on him for not putting out some Lion King review or something.
Oh,
he's gonna do for like a few years. And I was just like, dude, that must be like a really, I don't know, that must be an intense, weird sense of pressure in a way where you're like, you have a loyal fan base, but they want you to do something that maybe you don't want to do, and you gotta do it anyway.
We actually do currently have that happening where every time we put out something for this podcast, everyone's telling us that we need to do an episode on Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Which we've never mentioned really it before. I don't know why that became.
We have mentioned it because didn't you?
I auditioned for it as a kid, but
that was not. Wow. Okay, that's like, a huge. Come on, you gotta fucking do it then.
I don't.
You gotta do it.
Do you remember the sides for the audition?
I don't know if it was a legit audition. It was a website that told you to submit a video of you reciting lines, and I never heard back. And now I'm just processing, like, was that a legit thing, or did I just submit this video?
Wow.
Some website. But yeah.
You should, I will say, if you had to do anything that I would love to see you guys review, and I know you're not asking, so you can tell me to to leave. But there's a few things, I guess. The first is I'd like to see you review a movie called Hotel for Dogs, which is of a similar.
Mm-hmm. I have it on DVD.
The pantheon of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the studio like young adult but skewing much younger movie. No talking animals in it, but it's about two kids and earnestly trying to run a dog spa, which is great. And then also the other one I watched recently. Have you guys ever seen The Blank Check, the Disney movie from?
No, I think so.
It's
like now ringing a bell.
Okay, so this is like the craziest fucking movie I think so I saw it as a kid, and I remember being upset. I just, I think, I don't know what this says about me or anybody who liked that movie when you were younger. But the premise of the movie is that and it's also shot, by the way, by the guy John Toll who did The Matrix. So like it looks kind of good, and it's got what's his face from Twin Peaks in it, Miguel Ferreira, who great actor. Anyway,
Yeah.
the premise of this movie is that a guy, he gets out of jail, and he is not a good guy at all, and he is doing his thing, trying to live a life, trying to get back in the crime thing again. And as he's driving or pulling his car out, this kid who is a little boy, his parents are always putting pressure on him to be a businessman or something, even though he's like 6 years old or like 10 years old, whatever how old he is. And the Miguel Ferreira backs his car into the kid's bike. He destroys the bike, and he feels guilty about it. So he gives the kid a blank check, just saying, hey, just put, $200 on there. And the kid has this genius plan. Instead of doing that, he's going to put $1 million. So he puts $1 million in, and in the movie's universe, $1 million gets you like, seemingly like $20 million because he buys a house with a water slide. But the reason why I bring it up, that it is such a strange movie, and it is always, I feel like it's a hilarious movie to revisit now, and also a very disturbing one. First, like the principles of this film are basically like getting rich is great, and everyone should aspire to being a rich person is like one of the themes of the film.
Yeah.
But second, there is like, I'm not even like sugarcoating this. There is like the little kid ends up kissing and like romancing with a much older woman. So all the feelings of Big that felt a little weird when you watch it sometimes now about like, it's like 30-year-old woman's having sex with like a, young boy in an older person's body. This guy is not in this kid is not in an older man's body. He is a 10-year-old who literally this woman kisses him on the lips and tells him to come back, hit her up in 10 years, which would only make him, or no, I think she says less than 10 years. Anyway, I'm rambling now again, but
okay.
I really do think you should rewatch it, because I think the internet needs to like revisit this film.
Yeah,
and
I
question
absolutely
Disney.
have seen that film. You just awakened something inside of me. I think 20 years ago I saw that film.
Yeah. No, I mean, because the sequences I remembered as a kid was he's a water slide, and it kind of becomes a little bit like Home Alone a little bit, where he has this huge house, and then all these criminals who he's stolen money from because he's a fucking criminal, because he's still they're trying to come after him, and then he like has all these it kind of just like rips off of all these other movies. But anyway, it also does have this thing that I feel like is very specific to like early 2000s, late 90s movies. They all feel like they were shot at like sunrise, because they all look like pink and gorgeous, like, and they all look like they were shot in film or something. So I don't know. Anyway, I maybe that's why we're all, it helps kind of conjure the nostalgia, is they were smart about what time of day they should be shooting.
Yeah, that's why I have this really like low CRI light panel lighting me. It's for the illusion of sunrise, because the magenta levels are all messed
90s
up.
heads are gonna come out and say, Jeff, we love Jeff's
like, wow,
situation here. Yeah,
that sunrise look.
Yeah. Okay, we should talk about them. I'm sorry.
Don't be. I'm sorry that I feel like you've had to talk about the movie like all week with the. We might as well just talk about Blank Check or whatever it's called.
Blank Check. No, it's okay. I am curious to hear what you guys thought, and I appreciate. I'm very happy, and I was very relieved when I learned you liked it. So
I loved it. First of all, I watched it actually again last night, just to get a refresher, and I showed it to my roommates, and they both really loved it. I mean, my one roommate said it was like one of his favorite documentaries that he's seen. So
wow.
I mean, it's
That's cool.
I really like the film, and Jeff, I think, was telling me the same.
Yeah,
I'd hope so.
I mean,
really
first of all,
awkward.
Florida man to Florida man.
Florida man, two Florida guys.
You get it.
Yeah.
You definitely captured Florida.
It's kind of an interesting thing, of how to capture Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was like a thing that I think maybe just being around there and the places that the villages, like outside of the villages, is such a strange, like Ocala and Leesburg and these places that are like kind of more rural and have become a little bit more built up because of the villages, because there's like there's business and stuff coming in. But yeah, no, there was like some, I'm from South Florida, and I feel like South Florida, obviously Miami, like, you do have like the headlines of like bath salt man gets shot 3 times and growls at police officers. You have like you have weird shit happening everywhere. There's also this other story about that I was always obsessed with. This guy pretended to. This is a really fucked up story, but this guy who was he was probably 23. This could also be a Disney movie of like I guess if on the lines of Blank Check. This guy pretended to be a gynecologist, and I think because he was really actually, I think, obsessed, not with being, obviously he was a creep, but I actually think he wanted to do the work of what a gynecologist does. But he was not like he did not go,
like no certification.
No certification. And he had been operating for like 5 years, like for a while doing it. And I think he actually, like in some cases, if I may be butchering the story, but I think, I think I don't know if every patient was sort of like, this guy's a fraud. I think some people were like, oh yeah, okay. But he went to jail, and I was just like, this is the most other Florida man headline of ever.
Okay.
My life.
A couple just like quick Florida stories. I just want to see if you remember them. Do you remember the monkey on the lamb? This was on my side. So this was like near Clearwater. There was this, like, Stephen Colbert had this whole thing on the Colbert Report like 10 years ago about it. But there was this monkey that escaped and was living near where I lived. So it actually was like near where my dad worked. And for years it was on the loose. And every now and then you would hear about it because it would jump out of a tree and attack someone and then run away. So yeah, there's just an escaped monkey. That's
like a rabbit. Did they end up getting him, or what happened?
Yeah, so they ended up getting him, I think, after like 3 years.
Oh my God. So he really
but there was this one picture in the newspaper that like everyone felt really bad for the monkey. So like, oh, it's so lonely, because it was a mirror and the monkey was staring at itself in the mirror.
Wow.
And it was like this like really emotional time for our area.
The monkey held up a mirror to society. That was that was really the he was just trying to prove a point. That's crazy.
Yeah, I also did have like the whole bath salt, like people eating other people's faces, because that was near here. There was one of those where someone on bath salts, these people were watching TV in their garage, which is like a Florida thing people do sometimes. And yeah, this person on bath salts just came and ate their faces.
Wow. Yeah, no, I don't understand what the fuck was going on that year. I feel like it was like a year or two period where there were many incidents across the state, both in South Florida. There was I think one of the like early instances was a guy who like had no history of prior mental illness or anything like that, or even like real drug use. Seemingly had smoked bath salts, and then he ate a homeless man. Like he killed a homeless man, ate his face, and then the police shot him. Like the police tried to stop him, they shot him, and he did not fall to the ground. He growled at them. And I was just like, what the fuck? And then I saw, it probably was the story that you were bringing up. I saw another bath salt story. There was like at least 2 other ones that I had remember reading, and I was like, what the hell is going on specifically with Florida and these bath salts? And why are people, I feel like I've used bath salts in the tub, make like a bubble bath, and really nice, but like what inspires people to want to smoke it? I mean, it's just also, what does it do to you? Like what? I know
it turns you into like a superhuman zombie.
yeah. It's like I mean, I feel like if people knew this was like a psychotropic, some kind of like, I don't know. This reminds me of that I didn't see that movie, but Project Power is what it sounds like. You just just smoke it, and then you could just be invincible for like 5 minutes. Anyway. Fucking weird.
Anyways, luckily that was not a part of this documentary.
Definitely. I wish.
A little bit more tame. Yeah.
I mean, some drug use, but like a little bit more typical drug use.
Typical stuff.
we
Yeah.
haven't even like really like described the film to anyone who hasn't seen it
do a
yet.
synopsis.
But like, I mean, you could. Okay, before I read the synopsis, though, actually, I'll read it first. It is behind the gates of a palm tree-lined fantasy land. 4 residents of America's largest retirement community, the Villages, Florida, strive to find solace and meaning. And I wanted to ask you, Lance. So the thing that Jeff and I do every week is we read the Google synopsis for the film just to describe. We don't come up with our own synopses. And now that we're speaking to like a filmmaker directly, like who do you have any idea like who writes the synopsis for these Google things? Because sometimes they're ridiculous.
I'm gonna embarrass myself. Well, so that one I wrote myself.
Okay,
which I honestly, well, no, I mean now I don't think it's actually that good. I think I wrote that around the time of Sundance because no one else on the production team knew how to describe or talk about the movie. And I remember I had like a phone call with, somehow, even though this is a really small film, and I feel like ultimately it was made by, me and like 5 other like friends of mine physically on set and, there. We did have a lot of, we would show a lot of cuts to people invested in the film. And then, the New York Times, who also was like, creatively involved and Darren Aronofsky and his team was also involved too. So there, we'd have these like marathon large phone calls. And then it was a really like the most simple of questions, like, what is this movie about? People did not know how the fuck to talk about it. And I was like, oh, maybe that's maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. What I was doing, and I feel like this kind of came from my days of like, I would intern at, I would do like script coverage and stuff in college. I was working in, development jobs just to see what that was like. And I would always, when I was doing coverage, I was like, fuck, how do I fucking describe this movie? This isn't possible. And then, sometimes I would just look at comps. So I think like for that, I'm trying to remember what movies I was looking at, how they were described. Probably looked at like Far From Heaven. I think I looked at, probably looked at The Florida Project. I'm trying to think of the other movies that I looked at Safe, even is like obviously not applicable from the summary. But no, I mean, then sometimes I think what happens is, the news synopsis, if you look it up on Google, that one wasn't written by me. And I think it's good. I think it probably gets to what the film is more, but I also think like the synopsis you just read is, I think, what the movie actually is, which is sort of like this existential quest of a kind of film.
Yeah.
And I think the way that Magnolia has advertised the movie, which, I think they've done a great job. It seems like people hopefully are watching it and stuff, but they've sort of pitched it as like, this is the movie about the Villages, which in my mind, it's the first movie that has the Villages in it. And maybe this will cause other people to go make movies about the Villages or something. But in my mind, this is a movie like, where is the ideas of the place and the setting and like sort of the landscape, how it informs the consciousness of the people who live there. Like it's much more concerned with that than it is sort of the film that's going to be the expose or kind of give you all the information about, what the place is and how it works and, yada, yada, yada,
right.
This and whatever. So that's a long-winded answer to your question.
No,
but I honestly, I think most times it's probably like, depending on how involved the filmmaker gets. Usually there are filmmakers maybe like myself who, especially if like you really give a fuck about the movie you just made, like you really like, I have a hand in like every single material that, every single fucking thing that is, put out in the internet. I've tried to at least either start and then I'll hand it off to someone to help finish from like the Magnolia team or vice versa. They'll start something and I'll like give a really intense amount of notes. But then there are other places, other companies that put out movies that are not nearly as collaborative as like Magnolia is. And I feel like when like Netflix puts out a movie or, sometimes filmmakers are just truly like, they're expected to sort of just hand the keys over to whoever's going to be putting it out. Which I feel like we've seen. I mean, obviously like Netflix is Netflix. They've done, they can put out movies like Mank all day and actually get them attention, which is cool. But, they also fucked up Cuties, which is like I mean, like I still can't get over that.
Pretty badly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it seems like their consolation prize was giving the filmmaker a Netflix deal, which, I mean, that's
I mean, at
cool.
least that's like, yeah, it's like a
Yeah, no, it's
nice.
great.
It's
She
like, hey,
can,
we made everyone hate you,
yeah,
and
but
you
it's just
now
shitty
you
because
have a bunch of death threats, but
that movie is really good, and it's just such a weird. I mean, it does go to show how. I mean, obviously, this is like a trite thing to say, but how involved promoting a film can be, and how
yeah,
badly it could go if like you really don't. I still wonder if like I I believe what she's saying, that she didn't see that poster or anything when it came out, but and obviously I don't think anyone could have predicted like Ted Cruz fucking asshole idiot
yeah,
ass clown that guy is, coming out and then also tweeting about the movie or whatever he did, and then all these Republican lawmakers were like, this movie, Netflix supports pedophilia or something. It's just
yeah.
like, no, no one has seen the film, no one, it drives me nuts. But yeah, it can go. What was one example of the synopsis that you were like, fuck, like that is a terrible one that doesn't do justice to this movie at all?
We've had like a run of good ones. The Promising Young Woman one was nice. I'm trying to think though.
Yeah, there was like one that there was like a couple words you didn't even know in the synopsis, where it
Well,
just felt
that's
like the person was
too big. Maybe
It's
that's
just-
the filmmaker who wrote that. I'd have to imagine that's the.
I'm starting to believe that. Yeah.
it's like when a man uses legerdemain to
Yeah. Is that a real word, or is that just if you just made it up? I'm happy.
that's means sleight of hand.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Never have heard that. Yeah, I feel like I had a tendency to do shit like that too, especially in college, and then also trying to use big words in conversations. And a friend of mine, he's a critic. He was like, I don't think I've ever met anyone who mispronounces as many or misuses as many big words as you. And I was like, fuck, I gotta stop. I should just stick to the
Yeah.
simple English,
I feel like since you went to Harvard, that I feel like that's expected.
Well,
Like to use big words. It just feels like the right thing to do.
Well, it's also like, but I think you're kind of like an asshole. No matter what, you're kind of, yeah. And it's funny. I mean, the film program at Harvard was such a different experience and different vibe, and not nearly as stuffy as I think, like, at least I thought what Harvard would be like going into it. There's a lot of really great filmmakers that are, like, I don't know if you guys have seen Sherman's March, the Ross McElroy movie. You guys would love that film. There are some like heavy hitters that are, have been at this for a long time that teach there. And then, it kind of, the program hasn't changed. So one thing I did was like a 16mm film class, and you shot on 16, you edited on a flatbed on a Steenbeck, and the Steenbecks literally, like, you could see they're like, they haven't cleaned them. So like you could kind of see like blood stains from someone several decades probably prior who's done it. But like Andrew Bajowski did this class, and we see like they have archives of these films. The class has been going on for like 35 years. And then Damien Chazelle was also part of this class and made, his college thesis, Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, was like shot with all the equipment from this film program.
Not with an iPhone.
Not with an iPhone. Yeah. But anyway, I'm rambling, but it was a really cool time to be there, and a cool place to, make movies.
Yeah, DePaul, which is where Carson and I went, it's pretty much like they would just give you lots of equipment and stuff. And
That's
then
awesome.
just like, yeah, like the theory is not very strong there, but it's like, hey, you can have an Alexa and a Mira and a whole soundstage to yourself and tons of gear.
Oh my God. What? They had like that's psycho. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I shot like a web series with like 2 cameras and like on a soundstage, and like we just like pre-rig tons of like, light and stuff. And it's like, it was free.
Well, that's
obviously
awesome.
You pay tuition,
I feel like that's the thing is like, Well, I feel like the thing with film school that's always tough is I feel like, you either can go to vocational, right? Which I feel like at least some of my friends who've gone to like the more traditional, like Tisch or USC or Chapman, I think some of them went in wanting to be directors, and then they came out, still wanting to direct, but obviously like the one thing that's good about them is it equips you with skills of how to actually make a living. Like, so you become a gaffer or you
right
may see, or, whatever. But no, I mean, I think the way that it sounds like DePaul worked similar to ours. We didn't have nearly as nice of equipment, but there was a little, like, we would basically, our classes would go, like, we'd watch a movie, like a Frederick Wiseman movie. Occasionally we'd have like a Frederick Wiseman. I'm saying a Frederick Wiseman. There was only one Frederick Wiseman, but occasionally we'd have like him, like he came into one class because he lives in Cambridge, which is psycho. And then basically watch a movie, talk to a filmmaker, go and basically screen your rushes and talk about like what you're working on. So it was like cool, like there were film theory classes, but it was a very practical place too. And I kind of cheated the system in a way because I got to work on this film was really my it was my thesis in college.
Yeah, it was your thesis, right? And so
then,
you shot this when you were 22.
Started working on it. Yeah. Fuck.
Wow.
I started working on it then, summer of 2018. And then I brought it into class and I basically just tried to, the film program did not like, you were expected to make a film in every class if you were to take one, different projects. But I convinced all of my professors to like, let me work. Cause I just knew this was going to be like a really big undertaking.
Yeah.
I needed to figure out what I was doing. So I took like, three very different pedagogical approaches to like how and what this film could be. I took a class with like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that guy, Lucian Casting Taylor, who made like Leviathan, the sensory ethnography movies. But he's a very particular fella and he's a very great filmmaker. He made another movie called Cannibal. He hates this film so much, which is cool. But he gave me a lot of great notes. But there were just a lot of different. It was a kind of a way where I started to realize that the movie needed to grow, because the first shoot I did was just really. I shot a little bit with Reggie. The first shoot I was a little bit with Barbara, and I had a whole slew of other subjects I was following around. And then I was really obsessed with just trying to capture like the Busby Berkeley nature-esque stuff of the clubs and like the golf cart drill team or the cheerleaders or the this or the that. And there were cuts that I was experimenting with then that was kind of more like start on a club and then pick a person in the club and follow them around for like a few days. But it just never worked and it wasn't deep enough and it felt too judgy. It felt like too judgmental. So anyway, it grew a lot, but I got like trashed. I got like, I remember like we did these big critiques, like every single student, every single professor after all the screenings are done. And I remember for like 1 hour straight, I just got like, people were railing against this movie at the time, at least, because it was just like, I think I probably had a big X on my back already just because I had made other films that, left the program and were online different places. But no, I mean, it was really helpful. And I appreciate that kind of, I'd rather get trashed and make a better thing than not, and make trash. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah.
What was the number one critique?
Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, sorry. Wait. We have an internet thing. I was just saying, like, what was the number one critique they were giving you?
Well, one person would say, this is like the top line. Well, okay, I can give you two things. The top line thing, people said it was an endless tray of hors d'oeuvres with no main course. So like basically like tons of fun images that didn't really go anywhere. And I think, I was really trying, like there's two movies that I was really obsessed with. I was obsessed with this movie Space Coast, which was made by one of my professors, Ross McElwee. And it's a verite doc that is also I was trying to figure out like what movies exist that are portraits of places, but also portraits that become portraits of people. So, and I actually, I think like Wiseman obviously has a lot of those, but even then, Wiseman's portraiture is not quite what I'm looking to do. It's much more objective and omniscient. This is much more subjective. But Space Coast is a movie about this community, Florida community, right after the space program was defunded. And basically you just see all these people on this hangover of like a communal collective dream, and the economy has gone to the gutter, and all these people who once worked really promising jobs and were obsessed with the frontier and outer space are now just sort of stuck on land. And it's just such a fucking amazing movie, not only just because of that analogy of like, there's something cosmic about their pursuit, but also just where they are in their lives. It's very depressing. And then there was obviously Vernon, Florida, which was, their Florida movie, but also like you have these kind of fascinating subjects that just talk and talk and talk. And then somehow by some strange choices, the alchemy of how the movie's edited, it becomes this like transcendent thing, and all the parts become part of a larger whole. So I was trying to do that, and I just like, I couldn't, like, the material I captured was too stylized, I think, in a way that I think it almost betrayed the framework of what I was of those kinds of films that are much more verite and don't require any reenactments, or aren't are just kind of more straight up doc. And then the other criticism I had, this was a comment from Lucian, the filmmaker I was just referring to, and I've memorized this because it was like at the time I was just like, fuck, like that hurts. But it was something that I honestly like put up on our whiteboard while we were editing, because I just was like, I need to go deeper. But okay, I want to see if I can get this quote out of my brain. It's a long one. He said, this is the kind of film destined for American television or a film festival like Sundance, which is known for its unambitious, unintelligent, and parochial film programming. And then he said something sort of like, I think he said, this film is interesting, but could have been more, and it can be more with curiosity, with more fuck, I'm going to butchering this. I think he said something about like, this movie would have been benefited from simple curiosity about the magnitude of human existence. That was one of the last lines. And I was like, simple curiosity, magnitude of human existence. I'm like, oh shit, but I think he was right. Cause I do think, he was saying, the other things that he had said to me was that, it didn't portray people in the round. It felt more like caricatures than actual character portraits. And it felt also as if, at times, I think on the tightrope act of trying to appear, being really, I had like the access I had. I didn't want to betray any of the subjects in the film, because they were very collaborative in helping me make this and giving me ideas for what to shoot and how to shoot it. But, Lucian was also saying that, that the film on the tightrope act of like being respectful and being judgmental and also making someone appear foolish and not doing that, it was too much in the foolish camp. So, like making the film was always a question of those kinds of things. It's a modulation act of how, as the lens of a much younger person than any person in this community, it's the most expected thing you can do is to make a portrait of, how the older the okay boomer effect. Like I really wanted to not do okay boomer, because that is right to me. And I feel like it's a very reductive way to experience a human being, regardless of their age. And that also, that filter I was applying to like other things, like politically, like it was no surprise to me that a place that looked and felt like the Villages is like, extremely conservative. Like, I think it's like baked in the DNA of the community. So I was like, okay, well, I'd rather make something that goes deeper in a different way, in a different direction than everything you can just sort of read or glean from, in a political article or something.
And you probably you shot this, I guess, a couple like probably a year before he got heavy into like the last election.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
obviously, you know, there's so many stories coming out of the villages where it's like the villages are going to swing the election in Florida.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, totally. I mean, I think, look, if I had made the movie now, I mean, that's like a huge, like, I feel like there would have been so much shit to cover. And maybe there is someone making this film, who knows? But like, you have the political stuff, you have the, you know, I mean, you have the COVID of it all as well. I mean, it's, I'm sure you can make an entirely different film.
Yeah. And even with the same people you followed, like, I feel like knowing their political views, it gives you like this extra insight into like how they operate, and it just gives you a more total thing. But obviously, it's like you shot this before then. But
it's interesting.
I mean, like a different film.
Yeah, the only person, you know, Barbara's a part of the Democrat club. She's like a very staunch Boston liberal. You know, Reggie and Ann, it seems like skew more like they're not like Trump supporters. But when I ask Reggie, like, what he thinks about politics, he's like, I don't give a fuck about politics. I don't care. You know, he's just like, he doesn't give a shit. And then Dennis is definitely like a Trumper, but like not in a, I don't even think he like follows politics. I just think he likes the strong man routine.
Like, yeah, right. Like it's just the zeitgeist of other people that are all into it. Like, I'm with you.
I think he just likes him like he likes Hugh Hefner, you know, or like what Kanye said about Trump once, which he was like, you know, Trump's special, Joe Biden's not special or whatever, like distilling it down into that weird filter is exactly, I feel like, how Dennis would probably view him. But yeah, no, I mean, if I had made this film about different things, I don't think I would have been following the same subjects, you know, and even like, thankfully, fortunately, a lot of their lives hasn't, you know, obviously everyone's lives have been impacted by all the time we've spent indoors and all that craziness. But, you know, thankfully, knock on wood, they you know, they're all healthy. They're all fine. And it does seem like most of the crazy things that were happening in their lives, it seems like really happened while we were there, which is intense, but also, you know, I feel like we all feel like we made the movie we wanted to make. And by we, I mean myself plus the subjects, because that was like an interesting component to this of like them being, you know, it was important that they needed to see themselves, you know, in the movie. I feel like that was like, if the amount of access they gave me in return, the amount of trust they trusted in us, like to betray them to do something that they didn't like would have been, I don't think I could have lived with that decision. So, you know, I was like even the movie as is really intense to watch even if you don't know them. So it's always interesting, and I'm always just like very grateful to them for being so bold and, you know, being like co-artists almost in a way of making this thing.
Yeah.
I think Karsten and I had a few like more specific pointed questions, so I think we'll try to get into those. Karsten?
Yeah, well, I honestly, you touched on a lot of what I was gonna ask, and I was about to say, we had like a few people sent in questions on our Patreon.
Cool.
And I just wanted to touch on those. But Jeff, did you have anything specific?
Yeah, I had like a couple. I had like a couple more. So just like from a very general, when did you decide on the aspect ratio?
That was pretty early on. I mean, it was interesting. I think David Bolin and I, who is, you know, who shot this movie, who's a genius, you know, I've been working with him since I was really like my first short film he shot. So I've had a long standing relationship with him. He's one of my best friends, but this was really a decision that I can't take credit for at all. I mean, we got there, we were shooting, we were trying to figure out, it was probably like 2 or 3 days in while we were there. Initially we were just like, let's just figure it out and feel it out and shoot handheld and see what that feels like. And we did it, and we were shooting with the, you know, standard aspect ratio, and it just felt like it didn't feel right at all. And it was bugging us. It was bugging him. And in turn it was bugging me. So we spent a long night just talking, like, what can we do that can really, you know, communicate not only the, like, you know, the way the place feels and how manicured the place is, and, like we kept looking at photo books like Larry Sultan's Pictures from Home in the Valley, and we kept looking at movies like Safe, the Todd Haynes film, and Edward Scissorhands, and Bigger Than Life, the Nicholas Ray movie. So like there were movies we were looking at, and I think eventually we just were like, I think Safe was really the big thing. That movie is virtually all shot on sticks. Obviously the ratio isn't 4:3, but I think the tripod was just sort of like, okay, fuck, we like. That's probably the cheapest and most inexpensive. It's the cheapest way to basically communicate an omniscience, or at least an understanding of the place or a perspective of the place. That could, and then we were kind of like, okay, well, if we're trying to make our images sort of reflect how controlled, and beautify the place is, then let's figure out how to do that. And procedurally, I think it was like, okay, well, 4:3 does allow us to just ignore the things on the sides of the frames that are just like not that great. And then also like we would get to places, we'd only have a few minutes to set up. And it was just like, okay, like it was easier to kind of create these sort of 1-point perspective, these things. But then also I think like more conceptually, there was a lot of things we were thinking about. Like we liked the idea that this was sort of hearkening back. It almost felt like inauthentically old in a way. Kind of like how the place was aged, like the fake history of the place, the fake crack painted on one of the things. Like,
yeah, that shot, like, I mean, I know that's a shot. Like I could tell when you were editing that, you were like, this shot is like the first thing we're building around that. Like this is the shot.
No. I fucking love that just the detail that they paint. I mean, it comes from the place. So it was like, I like the idea that I thought that the choice to do it felt like a kind of like gesturing towards the nostalgia for like Turner Classic movies, and like a aspect ratio that maybe some of the subjects in the film would have grown up with when watching, but also it does feel inauthentic in a way, and it does feel modern, because I do feel like it is the choice to do it is there are plenty of films as of late that have also made that choice. But I would say it was a procedural thing, it was a conceptual thing, and also I think in terms of like getting intimate with our subjects, getting intimate with how to make the place look interesting. I liked that, like, it kind of in some ways made the film feel like a bubble inside of a bubble in a way, and that by compressing the space, things felt a little bit more claustrophobic and a little bit more like you were really inside of this palm fringed thing. But I don't know. I mean, I obviously I've seen it fucking a million times. So like the effect of the 4:3, I just never even notice it anymore. I mean, I don't think this is a thing, that like going forward, I'm going to be shooting all movies in 4:3. Like, but I do think, I think the thing that Bolan and I try to do is like, and I try to do this on all films. If I can't have Bolan, then I'll keep, I still try to think about this with other DPs. But this idea of how does the subject matter? How can we sort of reflect or riff off of the subject in the style of the movie? And how can we cry? And I feel like that's what Robert Altman did in his movies. And I feel like that's what PTA does in his movies. And, those are like, or how Ashby does in his films too. And those are like I think about like The Last Detail. I think about a lot of the ways in which filmmakers choose and are never sort of quite satisfied with the choices. And obviously there are some choices that can be too much. I feel like there's a tendency these days to like switch the aspect ratio mid movie, like in that a few times. And I'm just like, this seems distracting, But anyway, I like the move. Like, I like the idea of a movie like Waves that is able to like, the journey or the question, or I'm sure the artistic line of thought is like, how can we best simulate the experience emotionally of these characters for an audience? And I think that's a really cool line of questioning. Even if,
I do also love how when you answer questions, you answer like all 3 follow-up questions I had without me even having to ask.
Sorry.
No,
I'm
not in a bad way. Like I was literally,
man.
those were all the things I was going to ask. I was like, obviously this is such precise filmmaking, where I guess my final thing before we get into the user one, like, or the listener questions, is when you were like, for some of the like wider B-roll shots, obviously they're so specifically framed. Yeah. And in a documentary, did you have to do a lot of like instructing pretty much everyone in the frame to like start doing something at a specific time? Because it just seems like you were able to capture all of these moments in, on sticks so perfectly?
It was a mix, I'd say. Like there were times where it would be like we'd set up a shot and then wait around a long time until something happened. And then there were moments too where it wasn't quite like, all right, and go for it. It wasn't like as choreographed as that, but there was, I think it was like we would set up a shot, let normal things happen, and then once shit was kind of like, let's say like the air was kind of sucked out of the room and the conversation, like I'm thinking about like Dennis at the bowling alley, for example, or just like any of the sequences that involved Dennis, which were honestly very tricky to shoot. Anytime there was a woman that Dennis was sort of the eyes of, the object of his eyes or something, subject of his fascination. I wanted to make sure that the women were not, I mean, ethically it was challenging because I wanted to make sure that the women didn't feel like they were coerced into saying like, yes, please come into my house, like, because there was a camera filming them. So there would be these times where I would pull folks away, especially if I didn't know them that well. We'd have like a meal or a chat before we would shoot. And then, and like Dennis at the pool, for example, was, the woman in the red, the red hat, red outfit. I pulled her aside and I was just like, how much do you know about this guy? Like what is, and then she's like, I know everything I need to know about him. And I was like, oh, all right, good. Like, seems like, so I knew that she was probably going to, say, I knew that she was going to reject him. And then it was just a matter of like, we had that Zoom shot going every now and again. And we did it like, we honestly did that for like an hour, just trying to just giving ourselves enough options until the conversation got to a certain point where we were like, fuck yeah, that was it. But then, yeah, I mean, there were also other times where it was like much more of, we want to communicate this in a scene. We don't have that scene. How can we best find a way to actually make this natural and feel real? And, these are little things that we would pick up. Like, for example, it was really hard for like that, the video of Reggie getting arrested that happened, or when he was like, I had $10 worth of cocaine or whatever. That happened when we were gone. So it was sort of like, how can we fill in the gaps? And then these were questions that I would have to, then I would sort of ask Anne these questions. Like, we're going to include this in the film. What would be the most natural way that this would happen? How have you seen this video before? Where would you watch this video if you have seen it? And then, there would be kind of questions like that at times where it'd be like, we're sort of recreating a moment that has already happened. And then it's more sort of like, how do we capture the truth of that and the best sort of performance that can come from there? In order to, and I think in a weird way, sometimes it actually felt much more emotionally raw in the reenactment of it than sometimes it did in the actual real moment. So it was a super interesting process. And I think after having made a lot of short docs where I was much more of a fly on the wall and I was just stealing little moments and then trying to figure out how to make a movie about them and sculpting it in an edit. Like, I appreciated this much more just because in a lot of ways, the subjects were they understood what the lens of the production was.
Right, and you just had more control where you could kind of coax it so you didn't have to just rely on chance for everything.
Yeah, and also I think it's just like, I feel like this movie, out of any other film I've made, the subjects see themselves in it. And I've made plenty of films where where subjects are not happy with the film. I've even been, like almost the subject of a lawsuit over a film I made about lawyers. So go figure. Don't make a movie about lawyers if you don't want to get sued. But anyway, I like, and there are like things, there are those leaps you need to make at times that are, I feel like there are times where in the past where I have prioritized art over people, and I just really don't. I felt like I grew. I didn't want to do that anymore, and I wanted to make something that I could live with, and the subjects could live with it, and we could all be proud of it. So, yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. I wanted to hop into these. I don't want to keep you too long. I know I said in the email, I was like, no more than an hour. But we did have some patrons send in some questions, and they're pretty light, nothing crazy. But this first one comes from Boyoyoyoyoy. That's the username. And it is, what are some of your favorite documentaries, just in general? Or anything that inspired this specifically? I know you've already touched on like a few of them, but
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I mean, I love. Okay. Well, obviously, like the title of this movie, in some ways, is a callback to Gates of Heaven. So I think the early pre-Anti-Erotron Errol Morris movies, Fast, Cheap, Out of Control. I mean, that actually does have Anti-Erotron in it, but I love that film too. Vernon, Florida, Gates of Heaven. Salesman is one of my fucking all-time favorites. That movie is so insane. I really like my favorite Wiseman movie is Belfast, Maine, which is like this, it's like a 5-hour epic that I watched in college, and I just I just like a dream that watched over me. Is really good. Space Coast that I was referring to is a huge one on this film, at least. Sherman's March, another Ross McElwee film that I think is incredible. I honestly think if anyone's looking to get like just true raw inspiration, I really do think, like, I'm surprised that not as many people, younger cinephiles, haven't caught up with Ross's movies. There's another movie he made, Photographic Memory, another movie he made, Bright Leaves, which is also maybe one of my favorites. He's just sort of like, in my mind, the whole like filmmaker being a character in their film that Michael Moore ends up taking from, but also like, I mean, I think you could also really make an argument that Nathan Fielder also same vibe. I'm not even kidding. Like a lot of the same, even like the premise of the plot of Broken Flowers is really just like the narrative adaptation of Sherman's March. So like there are, that his movies are fucking amazing. Oh my Lord, what are some other ones? I mean, I think, for this stylistically, I was looking a little bit early on at the documentary work of Ulrich Seidel, the Austrian filmmaker. And I think you could probably tell that I stole, if you know his films, I've stolen sort of the way, at least some of the wider shots, how they work, like the tableau vivants or whatever he fucking calls them. But yeah, I love the way his movies look, but they're really tough to sit through and sit with. They get a really insane view of humanity. And then I'm trying to think of like other, docs that, I mean, of recent past, like of the last year, I really do think Feels Good Man is probably one of my all-time favorites. I think just probably as like one of, not only just as like a great, interesting look at contemporary internet culture, but also as just sort of like losing control, an artist losing control of a creation. I think it's like a modern day Frankenstein is what I thought of it. And then I loved Time, the Garrett Bradley's film.
Yes.
So fucking good. And also her shorts, if people haven't seen Alone, is insane. And there's a moment in Alone that is just like so unbelievable. That's just shot outside of a house and people are just mic'd up. It's a really amazing film. And then also, the last person I'll shout out, I really love Joris Debed. I'm always mispronounce his name, but Joris Debeji's. He made a bunch of short films with the New York Times. This movie called Perfectly Normal. He made another film called The Bull Rider. But these are films that also I feel like were very, very inspirational for me when I was just starting to make shorts. Just because this was a guy who was making such, these are docs that I think are probably less choreographed than mine, but they are extremely stylish, and the style never overpowers the substance. It's just like it's such a fascinating blend of the two together.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the style of your film, because the film that I've seen, like the doc that most closely resembles this, like formulaically, is Bombay Beach by Alma Harrell.
Oh man, fucking love that movie too.
Yeah. So yours, it's because it's about like, following people that's interwoven, and then, it's kind of still about a place.
Yeah.
But that's such like a gritty film compared to yours, which is like, which I mean, obviously makes perfect sense because it's about the Villages, which is this like fake, it's kind of like a fake place anyways.
Fake place. No, Bombay Beach is amazing. And also, I mean, Dino was the other one that I think is, I feel like that was another film that was shot. It's 4:3. It's a movie that we actually, I had been aware of, but I hadn't seen until after we had pretty much finished shooting. because the editor of that film, who's amazing, Sophia Supercasa, she was editing a film like next to our suite where we were editing this film. But yeah, I'd say like the other thing, the narrative films, I feel like that inspired this movie. I feel like in some ways were more impactful for the style, and I think a lot of that was just trying to pay homage to like, Paul Verhoeven's view of dystopianness. Like I like love shit like that growing up. I love obviously I've mentioned a few of these already, but Edward Scissorhands, Safe, the Todd Haynes movie, Shortcuts, the Robert Altman movie, Gloria, actually both Glorias, Gloria Bell and Gloria the original. Both are fucking amazing. Gloria Bell, fucking. Have you guys seen that movie?
I've been meaning to catch it. Never got around to it.
So good. I mean, that was another one where I was just sort of like that was the whole thing of movie about an old. She's not even. I mean, to call Julianne Moore older, go fuck yourself. I'm gonna go show myself out now. She's a saint. She's unbelievable. Yeah, but no, like it's the movie about growing older that isn't about aging. It's more about like the feeling of the lack of recognizing yourself in a mirror over time. And I think that movie's like unbelievably good. Anyway.
Yeah. I definitely gonna check it out. I wanted to just quickly say, this is more of a comment, but I feel like, and this is including your film, like 2020 was such a fantastic year for documentaries. In just like, I feel like so many of them they kind of pushed the envelope for a documentary. Like Time is a great example. Feels Good Man. I really like Boys State too.
Yeah.
And obviously yours. I just felt. Oh, and Dick Johnson Is Dead. Just all of those were amazing.
Film. I love Dick Johnson. Yeah, Mole Agent was another one that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the Ross brothers, I feel like are really the guys that also were have been on this wave for so long of making films that are not like pretty, which is a kind of another part of it, which I love, but stylistically and formally they're very inventive and strange. So Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, Chapachulas, 4 or 5, whatever. But their first film actually is my favorite of their bunch, The Zip Code. Anyway. Yeah.
We just watched Bloody Nose.
Pockets. Yeah, we just watched, and that hurt my brain, like trying to figure out how much of that was real, because I didn't read anything like going into it.
It was cool. It was cool to see it at Sundance because a lot of people were really pissed about it, which is funny. But I think that I was nervous, honestly, when we were putting our film out into the planet, that the documentary orthodoxy was going to have a lot of problems with it, and I feel like for whatever reason, the Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets absorbed all of the documentary orthodoxy's hate, but also like all of the love from so many people who also thankfully understood how good that movie was.
Yeah.
For
sure. We have one.
We have one more question. I was going to just say, like, I feel like it's the modern day version of like Symbiopsychotoxicplasm.
Yeah.
It's like a film that breaks all the current conventions, and it's just like very confusing what's happening.
No, I think you're totally right. I honestly, it would be interesting. I wish they did, like, it would be cool if they had inserted a little bit of their process of how they made it. But I think you're like, as that movie does, and then kind of becomes like such a reflexive, crazy mess. But no, the thing I love about that movie so much is that it just really does feel like, I don't know, like, I feel like the times, especially the time we are in now, when everyone is so fucking, like, it is impossible to decipher information and figure out what is real and what isn't. And, fact no longer seems to matter all so much in any way. I feel like the spirit of making films like Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets now I think is a lot more, I think it is reflective of the moment that we're in, of just the reality distortion effects of 2020, at least. Maybe 2021 will be a return to fact and truth, but I loved that film. I thought it was really, really cool.
Yeah. The last one It's kind of a goofy one, kind of not. It's from 10 Billion, and it's would you retire in the Villages or not? Even for a bit, for a laugh. Looking forward to seeing the film here soon.
For a laugh.
For a laugh.
Man, I'm not kidding. I did think about at a certain point, I was like, if we could find a cheap house here, I was like, maybe I should just get a bunch of my friends who make art, and we should just make like an art commune and just make it about that, isn't about that place, but feels inspired by the strange choice that we've all made to live there. But no, I don't want to live there. And, I don't have any interest. I mean, I do miss it weirdly at times. And I think it's maybe just comes from the feeling of missing, like making this film with, the subjects, because it was so fun and obviously really intense, but we all had such a fucking awesome time doing it. But no, I think I am curious, like what the future of retirement looks like when the baby boomer generation is no longer with us. Like I do question, what happens to the Villages, because are they going to recreate a different era? Will they recreate the fucking 80s?
Yeah.
And the 90s?
Yeah. Well, also just population dynamics, where right now is when there's the most old people that there's going to be for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but then it's just sort of like, will our standards of what, I do wonder if there will, like, one of the longstanding changes, maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but I do think like the return to the nuclear family, that I feel like some people, if they're fortunate enough to have family still in their lives and a house to return back to, like, at least for me and a lot of my friends, like I'd say like 90% of my friends were back home with their folks. And I do wonder if there's this element that, I do think like that the idea, the whole creation of age segregated communities in my mind is an unfortunate thing. And it's probably a response to society's just sort of like, I feel like society has made the older generation feel invisible for so long and not welcome in certain places. So it makes sense that they've created these enclaves, these utopias, where they can exist and they're the sort of centerpiece of the story. But yeah, no, I hope things change. I mean, I think it's like, it's a bummer that, my grandparents don't live with my family, and they live quite a ways away and they're much older now. So it's harder for them to do things, and it's harder for us to get to that. So it's just like, it's a shitty, I wish we all just lived under a roof. The communal way of living would be much better, I think. But anyway, yeah, short answer is I would not live there, I don't think. I think I would be freaked out by the artificial construction of it all.
Yeah.
And I crave some form of, reality somewhere.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you said that before I did on your thing, but for me, we synced up when we said that.
Yeah. We just Jinx, you owe me a soda,
Well, that does it for the questions we had. I wanted to this sounds silly. Usually we're like, do you have anything to plug to wrap things up? And you literally have a film.
Blank check.
Yeah. And Hotel for Dogs.
We will watch Blank Check for this podcast. We were actually talking about beforehand, asking you to give us a film
to watch.
Yeah.
Well, please, if you do it, can I come back? Can we talk about it? Because
literally,
we'd love to have you back. That'd be a crazy episode.
Let me know. I'd love to return. And I hope I feel like I've been rambling. So I good luck editing this.
Not at all. The beautiful thing is there's very little editing.
Yeah, Karsten does not edit this.
As you should. No.
Yeah. Well, that kind of does it for the episode right now. Jeff and I will edit we'll put our outro in later, but Lance, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this. I know it's been like on your birthday, in the midst of promoting this film.
No, man, thank you guys for having me. It was fun to shoot this shit. I feel like I've been fans of your guys' from online, for a while, so it's nice to just shoot the shit.
Of course.
I'm glad you like this film. I'm honored, honestly.
You know what? I'm going to say that you are my current favorite Florida documentarian.
Wow, damn. Man, how about Harmony Korine? He kind of can double as
Jeff did not like Demo.
I hate Gummo.
You don't like the two movies? I mean, this is oh fuck! I forgot to plug those two movies. The other two movies I was going to say that were deeply inspirational. You know, was the Beach Bum was a big one, and same with Spring Breakers. But
Spring Breakers, my parents have like a condo that is in one of the shots on Spring Breakers.
Wow,
it was shot in St. Pete.
Psychotic. Do they have any fun stories of them shutting down?
This was a while ago now, so I don't really remember. Okay. But yeah, it's I also was like an extra in Dolphin Tale, which was a film shot here.
Wow, man, look at you guys.
So I'm very Florida.
Yeah. Actors in disguise. No, yes, Beach Bum was awesome, and I'm sad. I don't know why that movie didn't get the love it deserved when it came out. People, you know, I feel like critics and audiences are just sort of like, this movie's weird, and I'm like,
it's like, you think this is weird, you should watch Gummo.
Go. I just like that. I love that sequence of, and people were talking about how it's too jokey, but I thought the sequence when they're dancing to Is That All There Is, and they get into a car accident and it's the flipper guys is such perfect. Such an amazing scene. But
I know the music box was playing like an Odorama version of it, where they would put in like weed scent for a few of the scenes, and I never got to go see it, but I did get to see the Q&A with Harmony Korine, where he like went up and just started playing like Chief Keef out of his iPhone speaker into the mic for like 2 minutes, and nobody laughed, and it was just really
that's so weird and so
uncomfortable,
funny.
But it was great.
Such a troll. No, I just think that movie is such a it's got its heart in its sleeve, so it's sad to see everyone tear it apart, because I really do think it's like a very sincere movie in a way that you never really get to see. Like his poetry at the end is so fucking ridiculous and so funny. Anyway, all right, I'll leave you guys. Thank you for having me.
And that was the Lance Oppenheim episode. Like I said earlier, we didn't want to waste his time by like reading the patrons and all that jazz. So this is me adding it in later. But if you would like to become a patron, head on over to patreon.com/Karstcast, where you can get exclusive access to bonus episodes, Q&As, shoutouts at the end of every episode, and much, much more. And actually, before I do that, I forgot to announce the movie for next week, which is Secret Zoo. It is, I think, a relatively small movie. Jeff picked it this week, but it's about people who dress up as animals to start a zoo or something. It looks really funny. I'm super excited about it. But Secret Zoo is the movie for next week. And we'll read the review next week when Jeff can be back for this usual outro. But for right now, these are the patron names. Don't read this, just look dead in the camera, wait a second, then pretend nothing happened. Thank you. Thank you, Addison Ware, Allison Grace, Annabelle Falk, Ben Chow, Bex, Blake Root, Boat, Boyoyoyoy, Brandon Yu, Brock Schultz, Camilla, David, Eden, Fozzie Bear, Grant Gow, Hannah E., Harry Remedianakis, I don't live in Ohio, It's me, Luke Hillis, I'm back, bitches, Iva, Jaden Easton, Jacob Colness, Jane V, John Van Hout, Joshua Quizwicki, Kara M, Karstcast Philosophy Cast, Katie T, Kaylee Patney, Liv Rob, Lucian Vicina, Molly Overbow, Martin Deff, Mary Lee Borslow, Micah Simmons, Michael Decker, Monroe Page, Riley Ost, Robert Burke, Saba, Sam Farr, Sophia Arieta, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Smitty Werbin, Jagerman Jensen, Taylor Hardy, 10 Billion, Vegard Strom, Vera S, Xavier Fossier, and I think that's it. I think, that'll do for this week. Thank you so much, guys, for the continued support. I think that'll do it for the episode. I don't have Jeff here to say catch you on the flip side, but I will do it for him. Catch you on the flip side, and catch you on the flip side, and flip side.